What's up, guys? Today I want to talk about the 97 Xmen clip because boy, oh boy, is it a beauty. All right, the animation in this scene is really great stuff. And something that always surprises me as a 3D animator is that these 2D guys, man, they are stealing frames. I mean, they are stealing frames left and right. And what I mean by stealing frames is that in a movement, right? In a punch, let's say a punch, you think you may need about, I don't know, 20 frames, for the anticipation, the ball to settle, all that. They do it in like 10. They just like, hey, we don't need this, we don't need that. It's just bare bones, really great animation. And the crazy part is that it works, right? You can read the punch. And in many cases, you'll find that in really fast movements, if you just remove a few frames, it'll actually be more impactful. And you see this all throughout the scene, especially with a lot of Wolverine movements. But let's get right into it. There's so much in this clip that I'm only gonna cover about 3 or 4 shots that I really enjoyed. Starting off, one thing that I really enjoyed was the establishing shot. You have this great establishing shot, right? It's low to the ground where you see the Sentinel rise up, and then you get an over-the-shoulder shot of the Sentinel, and you see how small the X-Men are in comparison. And I think in a lot of shots when you're doing, fighting, or if there's a big hero, not a big hero, but a big villain and the hero, you want to have an establishing shot so the viewer knows, okay, how big is this enemy in compared to the hero? Like, what's the scene? What's the size comparison? It's always good to have that establishing shot. This leads me straight into this Wolverine, right? The classic, and it's really, really nicely done. I went into Maya with the rig of mine to try and imitate it to see if it'll work with 3D, if it actually worked with 3D, and it absolutely does. Because if I remember the timing, because the timing and the spacing were absolutely sublime. And because you have him start off in this pose, he pops, right? What I would think is a pop, but it doesn't read as a pop. He pops up, eases in for 2 frames, pops again, and then eases out for 1 frame, and then you have this smear of him, of the claws coming out, fink, and then, the settle of 3 frames going up. And it's really, really nicely done, especially, with the camera, and then you have the visual effects for the claws, because I think that really brings the smear together. But the claws, fink, right, and have the electricity come off, it is really, really nicely done. And I suggest, this is something I was talking about in a previous video when it comes to stealing. Hey, look at that timing. Look at the spacing and see why it works. Because even if you look at the arcs, it's not a beautiful arc. You can feel the arc. It's more of a feeling of the arc as opposed to it being following a beautiful arc and shink and, everything. It's really a really rough, really gets straight to the point. And they steal a lot of frames, with that smear. Really greatly done. Because, in some frames, just looking as to why they're holding it, why they go up in 1 frame as opposed to 2 frames? Why they ease out? They go up, and then why not 3 frames, or why not 2 frames like it was when they were going up like that? Why they do 1 frame out and then the smear? Just thinking about, okay, why is that? As a matter of fact, the beautiful thing about 3D animation is that you don't have to ask. You can do it yourself and see how it feels. See, hey, they were just doing this because they were on time, they're trying to get out frames, or do they do this because it feels better? It looks and feels better for the animation. And I think that's one of the benefits, the extremely huge benefit to 3D animation is that you can experiment, right? You can experiment with, your eases in, your eases outs, how far the spacing is. You can really experiment, and you don't have to worry about redrawing the pose. You don't have to worry about that. This leads me to I would say, the final shot, and that is going to be this shot with Rogue, who throws the Sentinel into another Sentinel. And it's really nicely done. You have the Sentinel come in on frame. One of the Sentinels is standing still, right? It hits the Sentinel, but the camera is going on 1. So the camera is almost following, like it knows it's going to be pushed back, right? Because anytime you see someone, throwing a football, or you see someone shooting a basketball or anything, the cameraman goes to where it's going to be, not where it's at. So it tries to track it based off its arc and its understanding of where it's going, the physics of whatever it is that you're looking at. So in this case, it's pushing, you know it's gonna be pushed back. So the camera goes to where it's gonna be, and the Sentinel, man, the spacing is really nice on that, because you can feel that it's heavy, because it doesn't fully go wham. It's a really good chunk of space back, and then it eases into it. And then you have the secondary action of the head of the Sentinel, just to keep the shot alive as the camera is doing, you know, the shaky cam. Because if you were to remove the shaky cam, the shot would still hold up. In many cases, your shaky cam is gonna add just that added, that beautiful polish to your shot. But you have to understand that a bad animation is not gonna be saved by, you know, a shaky cam. It's not gonna be saved by that. But in this shot, it is really, really nicely done. You feel the weight of the Sentinel, that it's a big hunking piece of thing. It also doesn't alleviate, you know, the power of Rogue throwing the Sentinel into the other Sentinel. So it's a beautiful mix of, you know, of power and weight and spacing all put into one, with the camera shake to simulate the rumble. It's really, really nicely done. And then I have to add, you know, the Wolverine again, because the Wolverine is really well animated in this. There is a shot where he's, you know, stabbing the Sentinel, and it's just on ones. It's like, it would read as a pop, but it's not. It's like bam, 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 bam. Because he's going from, if I remember, he's going from here, and then bam, and then it's a ease in, and then he pops with the other hand as this hand's in. So he'll go bam, bam, right? And then pop with this hand, and then go bam, bam, and then they hold it for, I think, like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 frames, but it doesn't feel like it's being held. And what I mean by that, you don't notice it. You just notice it that it all flows, because after both hands are in, he holds the frame. I think it's two frames out, or not 2 frames, but 2 poses to ease out, where it's like bam, bam, and then bam. And then he eases into the pose. Shoom. It's really nicely done, because I'm thinking, yo, this looks like a pop, but it's not feeling like a pop, because it's bam, 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 bam. And the timing is good. The spacing always surprises me, because I'm like, wait, you can just go from here to here, and just like, there's no smear frame. I'm just like, how? That's interesting. I wonder if that works in 3D. It's always interesting to see, like, I wonder if I can get away with that on a few shots. You know, if I do it in 2s. It's really something that you gotta experiment with. And then lastly, you have a Wolverine being thrown, and it's interesting how I think it's about 4 frames, he goes from here to there, and it just, and then in the smear frames of Wolverine, he's not smearing on his hand or his upper body. It's just his foot that's being smeared. And I was like, I wonder why they did that. Is it because, you know, they're trying to save time, or is it because it looks better, it feels better? So it's always interesting, especially when it comes to TV animation. It's like, okay, are they doing this to save time, or are they doing this because it actually is better? And it's really nicely done. Really nicely done. Feel the flip of him, you know, flipping over and everything. And it's sold. You can see him flipping thanks to the smears, because usually you would think it would come off as stroby, where it's like, okay, he just seems to be randomly in a bunch of poses. But because of the smear, it makes it gives that continuous of him spinning, and it's nicely done. It's nicely done, man. It is nicely done. It should be a treat if you're an animator to just look at the scene and honestly just go, you know, frame by frame, and just be like, that's interesting. That's cool. You know, let me see if I can add some of the shots, just even that you know, how they've animated or how they framed the impact of the Sentinel. That's what got me. I was like, oh, okay, I like that. Because you can use that, let's say, for a punch, a kick, a throw, someone's catching something. There's so many ways to be inspired by how they shot that. So many ways. And it's the same thing with the spacing of Wolverine doing chink. You know, there's so many ways you can go baseball bat, you know, a punch. So many ways to use that timing and spacing with the smears to your benefit for whatever you're animating. And I think that is, man, that is some beautiful, beautiful animation. It is, and it's something that you should absolutely use in some of your own personal shots. Anyways, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, and until next time, keep animating.